reached out to me, said make a theme song for my show. Said alright, just give me all the details, man. And my homie says he don't know. Well, if you're gonna pay me big bucks, cause I might should have something to say. He said, you know what I bring, I'm the customizing king, nothing else matters anyway. So is he gonna have guests? I don't know. Is he gonna go live? I don't know. What time will it be? What will you see? I'm pretty much in the dark, but I can guarantee he'll be customizing action figures, getting paint all on his fingers. It's art by Ackerman. It's art by Ackerman. Tips and tricks and conversation, sharing his gift with every nation. It's art by Ackerman. Art by Ackerman. You best get ready, cause now it's time for Art by Ackerman.
Good evening, folks. Will I go live? The answer is yes. Will I have guests? The answer is also yes. Because tonight we are going to do some painting live, but I brought a couple friends along with me. First, you may have seen him on the other show that I was on this week, New to Mythics. This guy has been a force to be reckoned with for a little bit now. He jumped in and started doing shows and going to all these cons, and he's just a great dude. Bringing to the stage Greg Schmerber.
Hello,
Greg.
How are you?
Doing excellent. So we had a fun conversation earlier in the week where we talked about, kind of some of the figures that are readily available now that might be good ones for people to get into the line with.
Absolutely.
And I really focused a lot on like the customizing side of it. And one of those figures was a Vampire Phallanx that we both have. Right. And so we thought it would be cool for us to do kind of a crossover event where we talk about the figures and stuff on your show, and then jump over to my show and actually paint one of them up. So
it could be a train wreck, man. You're used to dealing with people that have a modicum of skill, and I've got negative skill.
Well, the good thing is that we're going to do a little thing today called dry brushing. And I will tell you that you do not need any skill to dry brush. Dry brushing can make any person that's never picked up a paintbrush look amazing because of the method that you do it and what happens with it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do, I've got one other person to bring on stage. This person is not going to be painting with us, but I brought him on to kind of help manage the conversation and the chat while we're painting. And you know what? He's a good artist in his own right. He may have some things for us as we go through here. You also talked to this gentleman this week. So it's like, New to Mythics and Art by Ackerman just like merging together.
And he's got a nice brush too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Joe Gonzalez. What is going on, Joe?
Howdy, fellas.
My man.
How you doing?
I raced home from work just to get here in time. See, I'm still got some dirt on my shoulders.
Very nice.
And that's how bad I didn't want to miss the opportunity to hang out with you two fine fellows.
Well, we really do appreciate it. I know I've done a couple of, like the pop and swap stuffs with Jeff and with Jesse, and they've been a lot of fun. But sometimes while we're in the art of doing what we're doing, we're missing some stuff going on in the chat. So appreciate you being here to kind of pull that up. And I will turn over the reins to you in a second, but let me just shout out the folks that are out there first. Sure. We've got Dub3 is in the house. We've got Some Warlock says, "Are you going live?" Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Jake is out there. We've got New to Mythics. Schmerber's in the chat and on the screen, pulling double duty. We got Rick Emmert out there in the chat. Survivor based. We have Guaisagwe Echevarria. We will not be giving out any prizes tonight, but if we did, I'm sure G's wife would win it because she's been on a tear lately.
Our love is a prize enough, right?
There you go. We got JMac77 is here in the house. We got Hoth the Basher. Eddie is here. Eduardo de Jesus. We got V-Dog there.
Charlie.
Cloud is here. Hey, Cloud.
Cloud.
Howdy.
Hello.
Cloud, I saw a post that you had said that you were on talking to your friends on the weekend on some show, but I don't know what the show it is. So throw the show in the chat. I'll throw it up on the screen and stuff. But I wanted to see it, but I don't know what show it is. So you got to be more specific with your posts so people know where to find you. So
spread the love.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about these figures, and one of the figures that we talked about was the Vampire Phallanx. And one of the things that I had mentioned to you, Greg, when we were on that show was how awesome a black body is for customizing.
Absolutely.
And the reason is that even like, so normally you got a lot of times if you're doing a full painted custom, you got to worry about the joints. You don't want joint rub. You don't want the joints to show. Like if let's say the figure was completely yellow, right? And you're making in another color, you're making it dark brown or something, right? When you go to bend the arms or legs or whatever, that yellow would show up and it would look weird.
Right.
But with black, it just comes across as shadow. So even if you painted a completely different color, for the most part, it's going to just show up and look like shadow in those crevices. And so that's why I think this Vampire Phallanx is such a good figure to start with. But it looks like we got a comment up there. What do we got, Joe?
Well, Cloud says Legends and Liquor every other Sunday on the Dan Who Reviews YouTube channel. So,
okay. All right. We will definitely check it out. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So we're gonna do this, and one of the things that I talked about on the show, just like a fun one to do on black that's like super easy, is either making it look kind of leatherish by doing a dry brush of brown, or making it kind of look like blood armor by doing a dry brush of red. Both of those are super easy, and both will immediately kind of transform that look. So I asked you which one you wanted to do, and you said red, right?
Red, yes.
Yep. So you're going to do red. I'm going to do brown. And we're just going to basically start working on this. But before I do, just want to talk a little bit about dry brushing, why you dry brush, what it is, what we're talking about. Okay. So typically you're taking a brush. So this is, I'm going to embiggen myself here for a second.
Do it.
So this is a dry brush. This is actually, this might be a makeup brush. Hold on. Because I got some makeup brushes making it. This is a makeup brush. But here's a dry brush from like Golden from the set that I recommended in an earlier video. And that's out there if you guys want to see it. This is a makeup brush. And you'll see they're almost the exact same thing, right? There's not much difference. You can use either or. I've even got some brushes like this that start out kind of like this, where it's just a flat edge brush. And as you use it a little bit, it starts to get like the bristles start spreading apart, and it becomes like a nice dry brush after you've used it for a little bit. So there's a lot of different things you can use for dry brushing. You can use old brushes. You can use ones that are specifically designed for dry brushing. You can use makeup brushes. They even have like really, really tiny makeup brushes that you can use for dry brushing and get into like really tight crevices. Okay. So that's kind of what you use for dry brushing.
Okay.
But what is dry brushing? Okay. So you're basically putting some paint on your brush, a little bit of paint on there, and then you're wiping most of it off. Now, what you wipe it off on is up to you. A lot of people, when they're first starting out, they just use a paper towel. So they get a paper towel, get some paint on here, and just wipe most of that paint off until there's barely any coming off. And then you start applying it to the figure. There's also, they have these that are called dry brush palettes. And this kind of works the same thing, where you can kind of get most of the paint off on this before applying it to whatever you're painting. The difference between the two is this doesn't have any sort of absorbent material like the paper towel does, to where it soaks up the moisture. So sometimes if you're using a paper towel, it'll soak the moisture up out of your paintbrush. And so when you go to apply it, you may get kind of like a chalky look. So if you ever see that you're starting to get a little bit of a chalky look, you know, this might be something to help you. Okay. But for what we're doing today, we're not really worried about that. So I'm just going to use a paper towel just like you are, Greg. And we're going to do this because there's also a couple different reasons that you dry brush, and we're going to talk about what we're doing today. So one of them is what I'm going to call directional dry brushing. So in directional dry brushing, what you would do is you basically would go kind of in a downward angle. All right. And the reason why you're doing that is you're trying to simulate the light that's coming up above. So you're putting lighter colors in a downward angle, and it's catching the highest part of those areas, and it makes that color look a little bit lighter up top than it is down below. So that's directional dry brushing.
So the paint heavier at the top and then lighter as it goes downward.
Yeah. So like one of the things I did a video not too long ago on zenithal priming, which is where you like basically prime the whole thing black or a dark color, and then you can either spray downward with an aerosol can or with an airbrush like a white, or you can even do a directional dry brush of white. So when you look at it from the top, it looks completely white. You look at it from the bottom and it looks completely black. So you're basically just trying to bring out the lighter parts up top, right? The next one we're going to talk about, and this is really what we're doing today, we're just trying to change the color. So we're starting with a black figure, and we're going to try to change this into like a dark red on your case, into more of a dark brown in my case. So we're just kind of color changing it. And for color change, you can kind of make circles, you can go up and down, you can go side to side, you can do whatever you want, okay? So that's what we're going to mostly be doing. Next one is bringing out the textures. So this would be like on these figures here. And, you know, if you're not familiar with this, let me just embiggen myself again real quick. So like at the top of these legs on the knights, you've got like this chainmail part, right? On the upper part of the legs. So what you could do there is you could take a tiny dry brush and just barely do a little bit of like a metallic, like a silver on there. And it's going to make that chainmail pop. It's going to look like all that you painted each one of those individual links, like with a tiny brush, but you didn't. You just took some silver on a brush, you dried most of it off, and you lightly went over it. And all of a sudden, all the raised areas are going to be silver, and everything inside is still going to be black. And it's going to look like you just did this very intricate detail work that you didn't do. Okay. And then the last one we'll talk about, which we're not going to do too much today, but I may do a little bit, is like a color change gradient. So if you're going from one color into another and you want to kind of blend it. So like a flame effect, if you're going from like red to orange to yellow, you may do some dry brushing of the red into the orange and of the orange into the yellow, so on and so forth. You can also do that with what they call wet brushing or wet blending. We're not going to get into that today.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, that's a little bit too advanced for what we're doing today. So right now, all we're really focusing on is this color change. You're going to change yours to the red. I'm going to change mine to the brown. And we're going to get started on that in just a second. Joe, anything else from the chat or anything that you want to add before we get rolling?
I guess I could give just what I do, because when I dry brush, I do use a paper towel. But when I don't just start wiping the paint off, I spin it in a real tight circle and make like a little well on the paper towel first, and then go off of that onto the rest of the dry brush. And that way it doesn't just suck all the color out of the brush. And when you're ready to add some more paint, you don't have to go back and repeat the whole process. You can spin it in that well and it'll add just a little bit more paint, and then wipe it on the paper towel and then dry brush. So
awesome. Great tip.
Yeah,
for sure. Now this figure does come with two heads. It's got a vampire head and it's got like what we would call the Gorgo head. Do you know which one that you're using, Greg?
I have the vampire head on there right now. I might not even paint the head. I might do a different head altogether.
So one thing that I would say is if you did want to paint the head, so if you wanted to do that like blood armor look, or if I wanted to do the leather look on here, what I would do is, and you can do this different ways. There's a material called Vallejo mask that you could use. You could just be really careful with your dry brushing. Typically what I do, because it's fast and easy, is I just throw some blue tack in there. So the same stuff that you use to like hold a custom head on and stuff, you just cover up the face. You want to keep that face paint that's already there. You're not trying to repaint that. So you just cover that up with some blue tack, do your dry brushing, and then pull the blue tack off. You're good to go. It's super easy and fast.
I use silly putty.
Yeah,
I do too. I've
had a lot of people mention that when I talk about blue tack. They're like, "Oh, you use silly putty," and that's great. I just don't have silly putty available. Blue tack. I've got blue tack in crevices of my house that I would not expect there to be blue tack in. So I can always find blue tack. Silly putty.
It's the exact same thing. Like
yeah. So, all right. So we're gonna get started. So Greg, basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna just take your brush. You're going to get some of the paint. You're using the red. Get some of that on there, and then wipe it off on that brush or on that paper towel until it's mostly gone. So
so I'm gonna squirt some.
Jordan says that he removes his excess paint by dabbing the nearest dog, usually stupid. I mean, that you could end up with a very colorful dog that way. I would recommend definitely not using any toxic paints if you're rubbing them on your dog. Just
good call.
I'm doing a little swirl well like Joe.
I did want to mention, and I've mentioned this in a few of my videos, but typically when I get ready to do it, I will dry brush on the back of my hand. And what I'm looking for is that I can see like the crevices of my skin in between, but on the raised surfaces that I've got the color that I'm looking for. So that's typically what I do, but just throwing that out there for folks.
That might be a little heavy, Greg.
A little heavy. Okay. So
you want it to be almost gone. Yeah.
So like if you're doing a torso, also when you very first start with the back.
Yeah.
Of the torso. Don't start with the front until you get it dialed in.
So I feel like
that way if you mess something up, it's on the back and you're not, stuck with it being right out front. Because most people don't display their figures
blob on there or something. You'd rather get a blob in an area that is not nobody's going to be seen. Yeah. And you could always, like, if you get too much on there, you could always just take like a wet paper towel or something and kind of wipe it off or whatever. So that's why I keep all those like pointed cotton swabs around in case I get some in an area that I don't want it or get too much in there.
And V-Dog, I can tell you, there's no practice.
This is completely live. We're just learning on the go.
Doing it live, buddy.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the paint, it took the shine right out of that. And gave a little bit of color and.
You're going to see especially the textured areas when you go over it. Yeah. You're going to see all of a sudden they just pop like really quickly.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So do you go back to the paper towel or do you go back to the paint?
You'll go back to the paint and then back to the paper towel.
Okay, so you
do a little bit more paint and then back. Yeah.
Okay.
And then when you're done, like I know this starts off as kind of a glossier figure. If you wanted to, you could always clear coat it with kind of a gloss afterwards. Otherwise, if you're looking for a matte finish, you can just leave it as is, or you can hit it with a clear coat of a matte afterwards too, if you wanted to.
So is this how they did Vorgus?
Most likely, yeah.
Technique?
Yeah.
Wow. It's really changed the figure and how he looks.
Yep.
Holy crap.
And there's another technique that's doing washes, which really is kind of the reverse of this. So what we're doing is we're hitting all the raised areas. A wash is more liquidy and it goes into the crevices. So a wash will like darken up the crevices. The brush and dry brushing will bring out the raised details. So a lot of people, like if they use, Citadel has one called a contrast paint, which is a really concentrated, almost like an ink. And if you use contrast paint, it'll really fill in those crevice areas. And then you hit it with a dry brush over top of it. And it's like, it looks like you did a whole bunch of steps of layering and painting, but it was just like two quick techniques. So,
yep. One of my favorite things to do, especially painting hair, like if someone has a large amount of hair, is to, hit it with a base coat and then go with 2 layers of dry brushing, getting lighter with each layer. And then when you go over your hair with a color, what did you just call them? The contrast paint.
Yep.
Then it's already got like the different shades and it looks really good. It looks good, Greg.
Can you see? So I'm leaving the chest kind of alone so you can see the difference.
Yeah.
It turned it kind of it looks brown on the camera, but it's actually kind of a deep.
So here's the other thing, Greg, is that you're putting a red over a black. So initially it's going to look a little bit more brownish. It's going to look a little darker. Yeah. But if you go over it again with another layer of dry brush, it's going to start becoming more and more red the more you go. So you can keep dry brushing as much as you want until you get it to the color that you're looking for.
It looks really good. I love this, the color and like the detail, like you said. So this figure it has a lot of textures and ridges and everything, but it's all one color. So I think adding a layer of paint, a light paint on top of it, like you said, it really brings out even more of the textures.
And this technique is just super easy, and it's for me, I don't know, but I don't want to speak for anybody else. Maybe Joe can say, tell us what he thinks. For me, dry brushing is super relaxing. So if I'm ever like, if I'm like, I know I need to paint, but I'm just not in the mood to paint, I'll tell myself, hey, just do a little dry brushing. Just go do a little bit of dry brushing. It'll be fine. 3 hours later, I've got a completed figure or whatever. It's like you just get into it, and all of a sudden you just want to keep going.
For me, all painting is relaxing. I don't even stress out painting eyes. You know what I mean? For me, just the whole process of painting and creating is super relaxing. But dry brushing is definitely one where there's no stress. It's super easy. Once you get a feel for it, you can do it without even really thinking about what you're doing. So
it's really hard to mess up dry brushing.
Right. I was gonna make that point, because you don't have to be hyper detailed. You're just brushing over the figure. You're not having to get into every nook and cranny unless you really, really want to.
Well, especially because we started off with a black figure, remember? So those areas that you don't get to just look darker, which is the way you want it to. So
Wyatt says, "What's up, dudes? One of these days I'll learn how to paint."
See, that's the great thing. That's what we're doing right now. You don't need to know how to paint in order to dry brush. Dry brush is like literally the easiest thing that you can do paint wise.
Yes. I've got zero skill. Yeah.
When I started painting, I couldn't draw a stick figure. Like the arms would be different lengths, and the head would be oblong. And it's just one of those things. Like once you learn the techniques, it's super easy.
Well, that's for the longest time, some folks gave Jeremy Gerard shit, and they called him LBC, which stands for Lazy Boy Customs.
Yes,
because it would be a lot of just like, he would take some parts from another figure, maybe like a Lord of the Rings figure or something, throw it on there. He would do some dry brushing, and boom, that's it. Like it's ready to go. And although it sounds super easy, and he probably didn't put as much time into some of those as if he was doing like a full layered repaint, the transformation is amazing. And you look at the finished product and you go, oh my God, that looks awesome. And it didn't take much time to do, because it's really just a lot of dry brushing.
Yeah.
I think the end result is more important than the effort that you put into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. I've actually got a sign from Jeremy that he had up at his table one year at Legion's Con, and it says it's like LBC Institute or something, and then underneath it says like, in dry brushing we trust. so yeah.
Nice.
I can kind of see how people do rust also, because it's kind of giving me a rust. Yep. It took the shine out of the black and made it kind of a dull, kind of rusty.
Yep. So like the one that I'm doing here, where I'm doing the brown, the legs, the dwarf legs that come from that Gaspar and Gorich 2-pack from Legion's Con, I guarantee that's what they did, was a black with a brown dry brush. And it looks, all of a sudden, even though it's sculpted armor, like you can tell it's supposed to be sculpted armor, because of the way they painted it, it looks like leather pants. So
I appreciate the invite. This is really really fun and interesting.
Yeah.
Because I never really understood, I guess, what dry brushing was. I'm one
really
of those,
as simple as what it sounds,
learn by doing, instead of, like I can hear it all day, but until I actually am doing it, then I can understand it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Greg, when you say things like, I can paint on a canvas but not on an action figure,
right.
like Like, that doesn't really make sense, man. Curtis started by painting on his thumb. And look at him now.
Make sense. I don't make sense. I do love painting on canvas, though.
Figures are just, movable canvas. So.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that when you're painting stuff that has a bunch of textural details, it's a lot easier than when you're painting flat surfaces. So, because this stuff, especially like the dry brushing, it'll hit all those raised details, and it just makes it so much easier.
That's one of the nice things about some of the newer parts that they've been doing, even like the bare arms from the Gaspar figure. They've added a lot more texture to the skin, even so that if you want to dry brush over just skin, it even can have a texture to pick it up. So
I'm noticing that right now, looking at the figure. He's got, it looks like kind of a lighter brush over him to give it kind of like a sheen or something.
Yeah, it'll bring out shade in the muscles and things.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, you can really tell the detail of the musculature. Wow.
Yeah, like you could paint that like gray and then dry brush a green over it, and it'd look like an orc with shading.
Now I'm gonna do one more here. Let me move myself over. So we've talked about dry brushing. You're just you can either make circles, up and down, back and forth, whatever. Another one I'm gonna show you here, Greg, that's also really easy. It's called stippling, and that's basically you still got the same amount of paint on your brush that we've been doing, but instead of going back and forth, you just kind of dab it.
What does that do?
So like, let's say as you're dry brushing, especially a flat surface, maybe it's not catching the paint. And so like I had a couple spots here on the chest that were the black was showing through too much. And so now I can just take this and do that stippling effect and start tapping it on the spot that I want to bring out. And it does that same kind of effect. So if you've got an area that is flat and it's not catching that dry brush details, you can just kind of do that little dabbing called stippling.
Okay. So try that. Try a little bit of that stipple.
But yeah, this stuff, I mean, it's just fun, painting around, having fun. And this is nothing. Now, to Joe's point, all painting can be relaxing and fun, because I do find sometimes, like when you're painting like the tiny details, the little like the ornate details that they've put in there, and you're just like tracing it along and stuff, that can be relaxing too. But sometimes that can also be a little stressful, like just trying to get everything right and have a steady hand. And maybe you had too much coffee that morning and your hands just got a little, whatever, a little jerkiness to it. But this stuff here, you can't really mess it up. Like it's just, you're just applying this and going back and forth. Maybe you're doing some stippling, but it's really hard to mess this up. So
Curtis always has a little bit of jerkiness to him. Just for
right.
That's my nature. Right. But even if sometimes on this stuff, if you think you mess up, it actually makes it look more natural. So you're actually better off.
And to that point, I guess just at this point in my life, making a mistake isn't the end of the world.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with painting over something and trying again. And that looks really good, Greg. But if you made a mistake and you just needed to paint over it black, let it dry, and then dry brush over it again, that's okay. You're doing this for fun. I mean, if you're painting a figure for a competition or something, maybe that would be a little more special, but or stressful. But if you're just doing this for fun, don't get stressed because you made a mistake. It's totally fine.
And I know beforehand, Greg and I talked, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but we didn't really take the figure apart too much. Like I popped mine apart at the waist, and that's really about it. If you were doing a full repaint, you probably would want to pop all the pieces apart, paint the individual pieces, let them dry, put it back together. Because all we're doing is dry brushing and it's on a black figure anyway, you can just leave it together and just go at it. Like we don't need to separate all the parts and stuff. So.
Well, I think the imperfection of it kind of makes it even more, gives it more personality.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, I'm leaving the chest kind of as is for the moment. That way you can see the difference.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Between the dry brushing and the original.
Yeah, it almost looks like you did a pop and swap.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, the back is painted, but I haven't.
Very nice. How we looking in the chat, Joe? Any questions or anything or comments?
There's been a few comments, mostly about Greg.
Oh yeah,
I got a heckler
about how he's a natural artist.
No,
Schmerber, you look very focused. It looks great, Greg. So definitely complimentary.
Very nice.
We had Trevor, who I've heard is quite the painter himself, pop into the chat.
He doesn't know how to stay in his lane. That's true.
No, he does not. Also, Survivor Based is here. And V-Dog says, Greg, you should be on the Geico commercial. He has potential.
Okay.
I don't watch commercials, so I don't know what.
I know. I don't think I know that one either.
Yeah, I don't know. I know Geico is like a lizard, right? Do you have?
They do have those, yeah.
Tendencies or
maybe,
perhaps.
Lar.
Yeah. La, 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 la. So the dabbing on the paper towel, you're kind of controlling how much paint you're applying to the figure.
Yeah. So if you just put the paint on your brush and you didn't wipe it off on the paint on the paper towel and stuff, when you would apply it, it would just go on very like liquidy, not liquidy, but
it would smear almost.
Yeah, it would just cover the whole thing. And we're not trying to cover the whole thing because we really want to utilize that black base that we've got to show through on what we're doing and really, still darken up those crevice areas. So
I like this technique. I like this.
I'm telling you, anybody can do this stuff.
Yeah, I think most people that once they try it, it becomes a popular tool in their arsenal of customizing for sure.
Well, and this is kind of what we were talking about on our show on New to Mythics. Check it out on the New to Mythics YouTube channel. Hopefully Greg and I can do more of these kind of crossover type episodes. Absolutely. But we were talking about over there, like there's still Legion builders available on Store Horseman right now, $26. Like you go in there, you buy a $26 figure, and then you do something like this, and it totally transforms it. And now you've got a completely different character.
Yeah.
And you're having fun. So
yeah, I was not super hyper interested in this figure. I just bought it because it looked cool, but it wasn't a favorite. But now, like, I really, really like, how this figure looks. It's made it more interesting.
Yep.
And then if you want to go back afterwards and hit some rivets with a different color, or just color in some of those lines on like the arms and the chest, you can just keep expanding through practice.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about this figure last night, knowing that we were going to do this today. And, he's got these like metallic purple weapons. And I was thinking, man, you know what? It would have been cool if I did a dry brush of metal, like a silver on this, and then a dry brush on top of that with like a purple metallic. So I might have to get another one out after we get done and do that.
Yeah,
let your imagination go wild on it.
Yeah, just to make
experiment,
see what works.
Yeah.
Can I see how yours is looking, Curtis?
Sure. Yeah, let's embiggen me here. So like this is the legs. So.
And what color were you using?
This is just a Mornfane brown. It's a Citadel color. So, and you can see like there's some splotchiness of black and brown and stuff, but that's okay. Like if you look at like worn leather, like that's kind of how that looks, right?
That does.
So, I mean, I'm still going to go over some of these areas, and if it looks like there's a spot that's like too black, like some of this here, I'm probably going to do some stippling. Yeah. But you want some of that color to show through,
right?
So,
yeah, that's why I think dry brushing is cool.
This is the kind of the torso so far. So, but yeah, and the good thing about it too is like you can do it in multiple layers. So like if I'm doing, let's say I'm doing a furry creature. I know they've got that squirrel out right now for Wolf King Customs. Jesse and Patrick revealed on Sunday on our show. If you look at like research pictures on squirrels, you'll see that like a squirrel's face has a bunch of different colors. There's like whites and grays and browns and yellows and orange. So what you can do is you can paint like one color on like the lower part, one color on the top part, and then you can start doing some different layers of dry brushing. And depending on how light you are with the brush, depending on how little of paint you have on there, you can make it to where it like transitions from one color to another, and you can kind of start seeing all the same colors in your sculpt that you see on your reference photos and stuff.
So V-Dog has a relevant question. Curtis, This is the first time watching this show. Do you just provide different tips on painting every episode, more or less?
So my whole channel is about customizing. So I'm on a lot of other shows. You can probably see me every day of the week if you wanted to. I don't know who wants to, but wanted to create a channel that's all about customizing. So I've got multiple playlists set up. I've got like one thing that comes out every Monday that's called How'd They Do That, where I talk to a different artist in the community about a style of custom that they do or something artistic that they do that they're known for. And they tell how they did it, and they share their secrets with everybody in case somebody wants to do something like it. It's a great segment with, people in the community that are willing to share those things, because that's what we're all about, is kind of sharing knowledge. I do one on Wednesdays that's a what's on your desk, which is what you're watching now. And typically that's just me sitting at my desk painting. Today it's me painting with Greg because we wanted to do this crossover thing. And then I do some reviews. And when I do my reviews, I do these exploded figure reviews where I take the figure apart in all the different pieces that'll come apart within reason, and then talk about the individual parts and then how they could be used and that kind of thing. So everything on my channel is somewhat customizing based, and there's playlists because I don't expect everybody to watch everything or like everything. But if there's a certain thing that you like that you want to see more of, you can go and check those playlists out and you can see all of those. So there you go.
Amber Anderson, who just came into the chat, says, I'm going to start watching you a lot. I have no clue where to start painting.
I tell you what,
this episode.
Yeah, This episode is a good one because Greg has, have you done any painting before? Just a little tiny bit?
Just a smidge.
Okay. So yeah, Greg hasn't really been much of a painter, but this technique that we're doing today, which is dry brushing, anybody can do, and you can immediately transform a figure with it. It's fun, it's easy, and it's amazing the difference that it makes in a quick time period. So
yeah, it is not stressful at all. I thought I would be stressed out about ruining the figure.
Well, you know what? I applaud you for coming on and doing this with me, because if you're not a painter, coming on and doing a live show painting probably would be a little bit stressful.
You asked, I come, man. But yeah, what's cool about this technique, though, is that it doesn't have to be perfect.
No. In fact, it's better if it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just going over the textures and everything, and it highlights. Yes, it does change the color in gradient degrees, but it's highlighting all the different textures and creating more shadows and making the figure, I think, a lot more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
The other thing you could do too, if it starts looking like a certain area got a little bit too much of the color that you're painting, you could always add a wash to it as well. So like the color that this started with was black. So Citadel has one called Nuln Oil, which is really it's referred to as like a black wash. So if you all of a sudden got a spot on this that's got too much of that color, you could hit it with a little bit of that black wash and bring it down. It's not really starting from scratch. It's not like you're just painting it black, but it will darken it up a bit and kind of bring it back to what you're looking for. And then you could always add a little light dry brush on top of that as well.
Does the original paint have to still be wet, or can it be dry?
No, it can be dry. Okay. Yeah. In fact, it's better off if it is dry before you put a wash on it.
Yeah. Otherwise, you might end up with swirls, which sometimes is cool, but not if that's not what you want.
Right.
V-Dog says, click that like button. Trevor's already here, but maybe somebody else that doesn't know will find out.
Yeah.
And Mike V, that's me. Woo, we live. I missed that it was live. We are alive, Mike.
Yeah, when we so I was messaging Jeremy and he wasn't sure whether he was gonna be doing a show or not. I knew he was at the studio this week getting ready for Zolo. And I said, hey, well, let me know if you're not, and then because we were gonna record this, but I would rather do it live if we can.
Absolutely.
And so he told me that yesterday that he wasn't going to be doing a show this week. So we thought, let's go ahead and go live and do this. Put Greg on the spot, make him feel nervous.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
It can happen.
Yeah. But I think, what better way to show, how easy this is than to take somebody that's never done it and have them do it live.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that you had me in for this one because if it was more advanced, I might be a little shaky. But this is basically you're just brushing just a little bit of paint over your figure. You're not dousing it with paint. You're drying off your brush mostly and just doing a nice light, and it brings out the textures in the figure. So
I'm doing a little bit more stippling here, but yeah. So that's kind of my big of myself. I don't know if that's going to pick up at all, but that head's becoming a little bit more leatherish and less, black shiny. So
now, do you check out? Do you use different lighting, or maybe check it out in the daylight and see?
No, I mean I will. Like when I think that something is done or nearly done, I'll take a picture of it. And sometimes, a photo will capture some things that you can't catch with the naked eye.
Right.
And then you'll go, oh, I messed up something there, or I need to make a slight adjustment or whatever. But no, I don't do any sort of taking it outside to look at it or any of that.
When I buy light bulbs, I tend to get ones that say daylight on them. So, and that's whatchamacallit, the new style LED bulbs. You can get daylight ones that have a very white light. White light will bring out true color, where the older bulbs all had a yellowish tint to it, so it actually changes the color of what you're looking at.
Yeah, so the light that I have, I've got two lights at my desk. I got one that's like this bar that goes over across my desk, and you kind of spread it out in a couple different angles. And then I've got my magnifier that has a light on it. Both of those have three different lights that you can switch it to, and it's like a yellow, a kind of yellow, and then the white one. And I always use the white one on both of those. So
yeah, definitely recommend white light for
yeah.
V-Dog says, where can I get basic custom heads? Any you recommend, not too pricey? I know you have a recommendation for this one, Curtis.
Yeah, I mean my favorite shop is Wolf King Customs, and they've got some there. One of them is called the Angel Knight helmet. I think it's their most popular piece that they've had, and it's because it's a full helmet. It's a really easy paint job. You can basically just do a black on it and do a silver dry brush, and it's going to look great. But if you then start getting a little bit more advanced, there's extra details in there that not only dry brush, but you can start painting these little details that'll make it look even better. So that's a good piece that you can kind of grow with. You can start easy and you can make it better as you go. So that would probably be my first recommendation. Also just practice on stuff that you've got. These figures, a lot of times they come with extra heads and stuff that we end up just throwing into a pile, bucket helmets and Gorgo helmets and all this kind of stuff. Grab one of those pieces and just put some paint to it and see if you like it. And if so, you may lead to a full custom. So,
yep. And, Wolfgang, do they still do the budget heads?
I believe they've got some of those too. I know for some reason, Lynn said that those seem to sell better at shows than they do online. So a lot of times they'll have those at shows, but it doesn't seem like they sell much online. But yeah, they do have some $5 heads, and sometimes things will go on sale there as well. I tell you what, the best way to do it is when you buy figures from him, a lot of times he's got these bundle deals on there. Like for everything with Necronominus right now, if you buy a figure, it automatically comes with a head that he is sending specifically to go with that figure. So like if you bought Necronominus himself, right? He's got this like skull with like a priest hood and stuff on it that's like really metal as heck. And because he thought it would look good on that figure. So at that, for that, you're basically paying the same price that you would anywhere else for that figure, and you're getting a free head with it. So that would be my recommendation if you need a figure and a head. If you're just looking for the heads, he's definitely got those there too.
Good call. Yep, good call.
So now I'm using this little like porcelain palette thing because it was just easier, and my paint's all dried up. So now I gotta get some more paint. But
Michael Caspers jumped in the chat.
Legion's Lair.
Legion's Lair official.
Yes.
You know if Wolf King Customs will be at Joe Fest?
I don't know. I don't think they're going to Joe Fest. I know they're at ZoloCon this upcoming weekend. We've got MuskeeCon coming up where Jesse will be bringing the Wolf King stuff to MuskeeCon. Man, is he going to Toylanta? I don't think he is going to Toylanta. But there, if you go to I tell you what, if you go to the Wolf Den on Facebook, that's the Wolf King Customs group. I'm sure Len's got it posted in there and the shows that they're going to, and definitely as they come up, he'll let you know.
Where's he based out of? Jersey?
Yeah, New Jersey.
Yeah.
So I know right now he's dealing with a lot of the Necronominus shipping. I saw a picture from him today, and man, he had like a whole garage full of. Ooh. Now, don't anybody go to Len's house and try to break in, but I'm just saying there was a lot of necro in his house.
A lot of necro there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then I guess the graveyard skeletons are kind of right behind it. They've already arrived and started shipping out to retailers, is what I heard. They were talking about on 4-ish o'clock today.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So,
I didn't pre-order those. I should have. Now I got to try and find a retailer that still has them.
Yep.
They're out there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I pre-ordered 3. If you really couldn't get one, I could help you out.
Same. I think I got 4. So,
jeez, guys, I just need 1 or 2 actual skeletons from that. I don't need the whole 4-pack. I don't think.
It was just such an unbelievable deal. I was like,
I wanted to grab the one off Len's because he's got the extra, heads, but
the ones that Jesse's doing
so damn quick.
Just four of those skeletons for $100, $25 a piece is an unbeatable deal. Even if they sit in the box for a long time, the extra ones, eventually I'm going to find a use for those skeleton bodies. Absolutely. And that price was pretty fantastic.
You're going to start feeling guilty again about not messing around with your Legion builders. And then you're going to go through a phase where you open them all up.
Yeah, well, what'll happen is some jerk will harass me about not having a New Year's resolution, and I'll be like, "Oh, all right, I'll open all my skeletons for New Year's resolution."
I can't imagine anyone being a jerk to you, Joe.
That's weird.
It is hard to imagine, but it happens every Friday on off.
Every Friday, tune in.
Well, that reminds me of this other show that I was watching the other day. There's this D&D campaign. It's called Allegiance Quest. I don't know if you guys have heard about this thing.
I have heard of it, yes.
But it's like this, they're doing a D&D campaign, but it's set in mythos. And one of the guys, really cool guy, he ended up like
from a certain point of view.
Yeah, he ended up taking care of this one guy was suffering, right? He gotten beat up and he was suffering, and he helped him out a little bit, right? Put him out of his misery, which is, what you'd want to do if I was suffering like
neighborly.
That.
It's neighborly.
Yeah. I tell you what, these other guys, these other kind of jerks, they got mad. They were really mad about it. Yeah.
They were really mad. I'm super curious to see where that act of kindness, how it affects things moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun to see.
Yeah, you just never know how certain people are going to react to things. So
you never know.
A little bit of tackiness. Will that dry? I mean, will that, will it dry or?
So a couple things. Number one, we started with a glossy figure, so it's going to have some of that initially from the glossy figure. Number two, it also kind of depends on what paint you're using. Now you're using a Vallejo paint, if I remember right, correct?
It's model color Vallejo.
Yeah. That if you look underneath that, it should say Vallejo.
Yeah.
So that is a little bit glossier than say a Citadel, or definitely more than a SoFlat or a Pro Acryl. So what you could do if it ends up being too kind of glossy or sticky at the end, you could hit it with a matte clear coat. I typically use Mr. Super Clear. But there's another one out at Hobby Lobby right now that Eric LeBron was telling me about that works real well, and it's a lot cheaper, so I may try that. But Mr. Super Clear works really well for sure. Mm-hmm. So,
all right, we got another question here from Amber.
Yeah,
she says, I have a base set of Monument Hobbies. Good start. Mm-hmm. I also have a giant speed paint set, which I think is weird to use, so going to probably off it. It's watery, hard to learn with, I think.
Yeah. So Monument Hobby, the Pro Acryl. Here's what I'll say. Next Wednesday, 1 week from today, you'll see a video of me trying out some Pro Acryl paints. What I will give you as a preview is, yes, I think it is a really good starter set for a lot of folks. So yeah, I would say that's a good one to start with. And then as far as speed paints, I'm not a huge speed paint fan, but they have their uses and they can do wonders. Like, there's some folks in the community that can paint a head up in 3 minutes with speed paints that all of a sudden looks as good as somebody that's spending hours on it. That being said, it's personal preference. You got to figure out what you like and what you don't like. It's kind of like what we were talking about with the contrast paints, where it's a little bit more runny, but it's also concentrated. It can gather up in certain areas that you may not want it to gather in. It can be difficult to use. It definitely takes some practice, but I guess it depends on what your goal is. If you're just trying to get done as quick as possible, speed paints might be the thing for you. If you really want to take your time and make sure that it looks the way that you want it to look, it may not be the thing. For me, I'm not a big fan, but I know some people that are.
I am for specific things. Again, like I said, if I'm painting hair, speed paint is great for hair. I'll do a few dry brushes at different tones, dark and then to light. And then when you put I used a lot of speed paint on my mud thumbs.
Okay.
And the blonde that I use for Mama Mud Thumb's hair is that speed paint technique.
Gotcha.
And I just dry brushed it and then put that yellow speed paint on there, and it came out beautiful, and it was really quick and easy to do. So it's not good for everything, but it definitely has its uses.
I will say that kind of like what Joe's talking about with the speed paints, contrast paints too, it seems like if you're doing something that's very textured, they work a lot better. Like if you're doing completely flat surfaces, because of it's concentrated and liquidy, you can get like these brush strokes, and it's kind of a little bit weird. But very textured areas like hair, beards, chainmail, like things like that, like he was talking about with the speed paints. Like I really like doing like red hair, like a redhead, where it's really more orange, but we call it red. Right. Anyway, there's a Citadel contrast paint called Griffhound Orange. And so if you do like a base coat of, anything like yellow or orange or whatever, and then you put that Griffhound Orange on it, it's like, bam, like it is just looks great. And you do like a little light dry brush over top of it and you're done. So yeah, there's, especially for textured areas, I could definitely see that.
Yeah. Speed paint and contrast paint are very, very similar in effect. So I wouldn't separate them into different classifications.
Yeah, it's just kind of what each brand calls it,
Right. Looks great, Greg.
Yeah, it's really changed the figure. It went from a glossy black to this dull kind of rusty.
Just looks like you left your vampire out in the rain too long.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I really like it.
Amber says, back of my new hedgehog. If I remember right, I believe that is a very textured figure. So yeah, you could definitely hit that with some speed paint, do a little dry brush over top of it, and you'd be set. You look great.
Yeah, Amber, you got to try the dry brushing.
Yeah, I almost always, when I use, whether it's speed paint or contrast, if I use one of those, I'm almost always going to do a dry brush over it just to make sure there's no streakiness or weirdness or anything like that on the, to really bring out the highlights.
Yep. And don't be afraid to practice. When I started painting, I got on eBay and I found a seller that was selling a box of, they weren't even Mythic Legions. They were for Marvel Legends, but it was misprints. And I got a box of like 25 heads for like $10 of these misprints. And, and I just completely just went to town, just trying different things. And I found the stuff that worked for me that I liked.
So, yeah. Or even like if you go to a flea market, sometimes they'll have that like little bin that's under the table. Yeah. It's like everything in here is $1, right? Mm-hmm. You just like go through there and find some figures and grab them. And
you could even grab like old Motu figures and then just prime over them.
That's how I got my start in painting was trying to restore vintage Motu. Like I went to the flea market and this guy had like a bin that was like $1 or $2 each. And I would pick them up and I would go, oh man, I love this Man at Arms, but look at his helmet. Look at it. Like poor guy, like his helmet's all worn out and stuff. And I would just try to paint it and bring it back to like its former glory. And that's how I got my start in customizing.
Wow. Right.
All right. So I'm going to mute myself for a second because I got to turn on the heat gun. So,
okay. When you get back.
No, that's fine. What do you got?
Amber says, explain that. And I missed what she was saying. Explain that. So I was going to say, if you could just pop that in there, what you wanted Curtis to explain more, he'd be happy to answer. Yeah, Benny, how's it going, man?
Hey, what's up, Benny?
And she says she has a big box of misprints to wreck. You're not wrecking them. Yeah.
So that's kind of what we've been doing this whole time. Amber is dry brushing. So you're basically I'll let Joe explain it and I'm going to do my heat gun real quick.
So dry brushing, you'll see like what Greg is showing right now. That was a solid black figure and he's just taking paint on a dry brush, which you can use makeup brushes. Like what he's showing right there.
So I'm taking the brush, dabbing it in the paint. I don't have a thing to put the paint in, so I just use that Mythic plastic thing. So I'm dabbing the paint. Once I dab it with the paint, I get my paper towel, and then I'm just kind of drying off what's the percentage? 60, 70?
I'd say 90%. You're trying to get it where just hardly any paint is going on because you're just picking up the surface. You don't want to get into any crevices or details.
I'm just doing this basically, Amber. I'm just going over it like this. And when you do that, it's really because it's not getting in every little nook and crack and cranny. It's just going over the top of it. So the detail is still there and it almost accentuates it. All the different textures and details in there.
It does. It definitely pulls out the detail. Yep. Awesome. And you can use that technique on just about anything, really.
So this is kind of where I'm at this point. So I did not touch the attachments in the head. So you can see kind of that glossy black there, but the rest of it is, pretty brown. So
can you put light onto it.
Let me see if I can get me
because it kind of just looks.
See, when I was on this other show, for the D&D thing that I do, this one guy was giving me crap because I only had one monitor. And he's like, who only has one monitor? That's ridiculous. And
somebody who's not dedicated, that's who.
Yeah. So I had to get another monitor. And the problem is that it blocks my ring light. So, all right. How about that?
That's better. Yeah, better. That way we can see some of the color.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks very similar to an armory figure.
Yeah, I mean, it to me, this is like if you grab that dwarf legs from the Gaspar 2-pack, like that, the Gaspar Gorge 2-pack, this is pretty much what this looks like in person.
Yeah, that's this.
So, yeah. So, yep. And then, so what I would like, if I was doing a full repaint, I would probably do the dry brush all over. And then the next step for me would be to bring out some of the little detail areas. So like I would paint this belt, like do a detail paint of black, maybe start hitting a little of the rivets with some silver dots. Like that's just kind of taking it to the next step after this. I could, take, there's like those chainmail parts on the upper parts of the legs, on the inside of the elbow, take a little bit of silver dry brush on there to really make that chainmail pop. So things like that. So this would be, but for just dry brushing for what now, an hour, it's kind of dry. Well, we've also been talking a lot too, but just a little bit of a dry brushing makes this figure look completely different. And then if you wanted to take it another step further, you could start pulling out some of the other details and painting them. But yeah, I mean, it's just, like I said, a lot of fun. It's easy to do. And,
I think the color too, the color does something. So like yours with that brown, it seems like it almost turned it into a leather.
Yep.
And then mine with the base figure being black and putting red on it, it turned it into a brownish rust-ish type of coating over the figure.
Yeah, and if you continue to go over that same area with more of that red, it's going to start becoming more red as you go. So, like one thing about the blood armor, it was actually one of the, we always say don't look back, like look forward when you're getting into legions because the stuff behind you is way expensive. Well, one of them that I had to have when I got in was the blood armor, the original Vorgus Vermilius, and I was like, I got to get that figure because I just really love the way that it looks, and I went and got it. And I paid, good price for it. It came in and I was disappointed because it was the all-star version, which is it's a little bit different. It looks more brownish than it does red. Like the original release looks more red. And so I wasn't happy with it. And it was maybe like the second or third thing that I painted in all of Legions. I took this expensive figure that I just paid a whole bunch for, and I did a dry brush of some red over it, because I wanted it to have more of that red look than like the brown, like what you're looking at right now. And that's all it is. It's just a little bit more red dry brushing. And you're going to see the rest of those details come out as far as the blood armor part. And it just gives it a different look because the first layer that you did is really still connecting with that black that's underneath. And it's taking that red and it's making it into a darker red. But the more you do it, the more it brightens up.
Yeah.
So Rick Emmert says, one thing I haven't heard you guys say is that you want to try to dry brush across the raised sculpt versus with it, like cutting a steak against the grain.
Yeah. I mean, it just really depends what you're trying to go for. Like I said, there's also directional dry brushing. So sometimes you're going to be dry brushing from up to down, regardless of which way the stuff is going. So it really depends on what you're doing with something like this. Because we're trying to get full coverage and we're just really changing the whole color of this. We're not just trying to bring out the texture. We're doing some semicircles. We're doing up and down, back and forth. We're going every which direction. But yeah, you just it depends on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to bring out. But yes, it does help. If you are trying to just bring out those raised surfaces, you're doing that like more textured dry brushing, like the chainmail and stuff that we were talking about. Going against it will definitely, help kind of catch it a little bit more. So awesome. Well, I think that's really all I've got for today. You still working on that, Greg, or what do you think? You're in a good stopping point?
I mean, I'm pretty happy. I might do a little bit more off the I was gonna say off the clock.
Yeah.
Off camera, I might do a little bit more. I started doing a little bit of wash on the chest piece, and it kind of revitalized the reddish a little bit. Yep. So then I kind of faded it or kind of feathered it into that. So the chest is a little bit darker, and I kind of like that.
That's cool.
So there's still a little bit of black underneath there that you can still see a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And then as you start looking, like if you look at like the gauntlets on this figure, it's got some of those like details that fan out to the side, right? So you could, if you wanted to, you could take a different color, or maybe just do that red, but instead of dry brushing, you just paint a red stripe on there and pull out those details. Then you start looking down on like the upper legs, the thigh area and stuff. Like on the front of that leg, it's got some more of those details there. So, you know, that's just then taking it to the next level and starting pulling out some of those other details and adding some ornate, you know, paints to it and stuff. Painting those rivets, that's an easy one. Like anytime that you see like a little, you know, almost like a nail head, you know, just hit that with a little drop of metallic, boom, boom, boom. And, you know, real quick, easy paint hits that make a difference. So
it's going to make your figure more premium too, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's just like when you look at the Armory Knights, like Joe was talking about, right? Like one of the benefits of those Armory Knights is you look at it and it's like, oh, look at all the little rivets and look at the chainmail is painted and this the strap it's painted and it's nice and everything. Those are just really quick, easy paint hits. It's for those, it's kind of like when you were a kid and working on a coloring book and you're just trying to stay inside the lines, right? That's all you're doing. Like the sculpted details are there. Eric did the hard work.
Yep.
All you're doing is painting inside the lines at that point. So
very cool.
Okay. V-Dog says, super chat. Tell Greg to pretend he is painting a lady's head and have him sing this from the Beach Boys. Don't worry, baby. Don't worry, baby. Everything will turn out all right.
Wow.
All right. Unfortunately, we don't have super chats turned on yet because this is still a relatively new channel. We've got the subscribers. We just don't have the watch hours yet. So, folks, if you want to help out, here's what you do. Stay on this channel. When you go to bed tonight, go one of the playlists and say play all and just let it play all night long while you go to sleep. That'll work out great. So
and then subscribe to New to Mythics. It's
yeah, for sure. And you know what? I think I really appreciate all the questions out there, especially from folks that are either just getting their start in painting or you know, maybe have yet to start because they're a little nervous. Because I think that, you know, Greg's show and my show really are trying to cater towards you folks. You know, the whole New to Mythics and the Art by Ackerman channel is really about like getting into this line and getting used to the community. And for me, it's, you know, getting into the customizing aspect of it. So yeah, check out his show. Heck, if you want to be on his show, let him know. If you would like to do something like that I just did with Greg today, you're like, man, I'd really like to paint X, Y, or Z. I'd like to do one of these with you on a Wednesday. Let me know. We'll see what we can do. We'll bring you on.
Also tune into the customizing studio every Sunday.
Yeah. So Sunday we've got a message group that we do a call, and it's called the Customizing Studio. So if you need an invite, let me know. And 1 p.m. Eastern on Sundays, we get together and we do some painting together. So I did want to make mention that Stacy Lynn and Tanya McCoy have also been doing one on the Legion's Ladies channel. They've been doing this Mod Squad on Saturdays, where all they're doing is kind of what we're doing here is just painting live. They have it different. Like we were showing our stupid faces the whole time. They actually have their cameras pointed down at what they're doing, and like you can actually see what they're painting. So that's kind of interesting as well.
That's our
yeah. But yeah, check that out because they do a fun little show there on Saturday mornings as well. You know, so yeah, good stuff. But I mean, really, the whole point of my channel, you know, for any of you joining here for the first time, that especially if you came over from New to Mythics, you saw Greg over there and he said, come over here. And you said, yes, Greg, I'll come over. So if you're joining for the first time, I just want to let you know, really, my whole channel is about customizing. And all I'm looking for is to try to help somebody, whether it's get them started and do their first paint job. I've had some folks that say, hey, I used to do this in the past. I used to customize a lot, but I kind of got away from it. And you inspired me to get back to it. That's what it's all about. Just trying to help people out, you know, to get into this thing, because I know for me, it's been life-changing. It's, you know, helped me kind of keep my sanity. It's helped me to make a lot of friends. And I just really enjoy it. So I'm hoping that you guys do too. If you found this interesting, if after you got done watching me and Greg, you went and tried and did your own dry brushing, go ahead and make a post about it and tag us in it. We'd love to see what you came up with. And let us know in the comments if is there other segments like this that you'd want to see where I bring somebody on that really isn't expert at painting, and we try to focus on a technique together we can do even with a beginner, painter. So.
Yeah,
Cool.
I appreciate it. You helped me. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me on your show. It's a fun collaboration, and it's really helped me. Both of you guys have made me feel comfortable and able to do this. So I feel
it's a very easy technique that can make a huge difference really quickly. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Kevin says, don't forget, watch Legion's Ladies live tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
So you'll get to see me super chat him and call him honey. So,
I wish I could have caught this stream earlier. Killer job, Greg.
Thank you.
Man, just grab that little dot and slide it all the way backwards.
There you go.
You can catch the whole show. Man.
It will be available for replay as well. And I do have, this is part of the What's on My Desk series. So there is a playlist set up for this as well. So you can go back and watch any of the previous ones. You can watch this one. I really need to start talking about those playlists more, because I know there's some folks that are like, man, I'm trying to catch up with all your stuff, but you're just putting out so much content. I don't expect you to watch it all. I don't expect you to like it all. But if you do find anything you do like, there's a playlist for it. Go find that playlist and enjoy yourself. So
absolutely. It's fun to have even on the background.
Yeah.
Like on customizing, one day I was playing one of your videos, and
I had somebody tell me today that he just kind of plays my video as like a audio track in the background while he's working and stuff. It's like, hey, whatever works, man. That's cool.
All of your exploded reviews have been watched while I was doing dishes. So yeah.
I tell you what's an unexpected benefit of those exploded reviews is now I'm getting those screenshots of all the figures exploded, and I've like just keeping a library of them. So if I ever need to refer back to like what parts are with what, like I've got the view for all of those. So I'm making sure that I'm keeping like an album of those, awesome. And I'll post them in the Cabal every so often. So
are you only doing new figures forward?
I've had some people ask about doing some older figures. Right now I'm just trying to make it through Necronominus. I know All-Star 6 will be upon us as soon as we know it. And then we'll see, like if I get through all that and I've got some open time, maybe I'll just go back and do some older ones. Maybe some stuff that's still readily available kind of thing.
I'm waiting for that exploded view of the dragon, right, Joe?
Dude, I'm gonna have to do like an aerial shot. I'm gonna have to get like rent out a helicopter. And
put it all. I think Curtis is gonna have to get a cauldron, to boil water in his front yard to dip the dragon in to pull apart. Yep. But that dragon, we're talking about dry brushing. If someone was going to get a dragon to paint, man, there's such exquisite detail on that. Dry brushing is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, that would be an excellent one to dry brush. The bear too. Bear would be a fantastic one to dry brush. So
I would like to just watch someone do that.
Yep. All right. Well, Greg, I got to thank you because I've not ever opened one of these Vampire Phallanx. It was just, I thought it was a great figure for customizing, but I never, the figure itself, like I don't really care as much about vampires.
Right. Yeah, me too.
But after painting this, I'm like, man, I really like this. And luckily I've got a few more of them. So I might end up doing one in purple and finishing this one, do some more details and stuff. So thank you. So
thank you, man. I had a great time.
I've got like 4 of them in my display, but
very nice. Very nice. What's coming up for New to Mythics? What should people be aware of?
Let's see. I've got, who's on my next one? I've got the Mi Amigos, which is Matt Van Fossen and Eric Keys. We're doing a Noble Bear deep dive that comes out this coming Tuesday, where we go over,
as in the faction.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we go over every figure in that faction. And then I might start releasing 2 episodes a week because I'm behind. I've got a bunch of episodes taped into April. And people are like, how come your shows are so old? I'm like, well, I mean, I like talking to people, and I'm just releasing one a week.
I have to say that I enjoyed watching the episode that I was in because I couldn't remember what we talked about. It had been so long. So I was like, wow, that's really interesting that I said that at the time.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember what I talked about. I'm like,
I was actually watching that today, and you guys were talking about the dragon. And you're like, yeah, no matter what the price is. And I'm like, they already told us the price. What are you talking about? Oh yeah, you recorded this forever ago.
That was like, when did we tape that, Joe? Like December, January?
It felt like it was right after Legion's Con, basically.
It wasn't too long after Legion's Con.
Yeah, I've got like 10 in the can, so I'm booked until April. So I might just start doing 2 a week to try and catch up. So,
well, if you're catching this one and you didn't watch the episode that I was on with Greg this week, make sure you go back and watch that too, because we talk about a bunch of figures that would be great to get as of right now. Like, that list is always going to change based on what's available, but as of right now, it's a great list, I think, on figures to start with. And then, like they said, there's one with Joe on there that's really great as well.
Show.
Yep. Tune in Saturday morning, double jointed on the Saturday Morning Toy Collector. It is the best show on YouTube. Just going to throw that out there. Okay. Best show on YouTube. Makes you really appreciate Saturday mornings again, like you did when you were a kid.
It's fun. It's a fun show.
Yep.
Man, I'm at work Saturday mornings.
It's a great one, man.
Got to put it on. The show is great. It just, it's not like when I was a kid.
See, Amber.
Yeah. See ya. All right. Well, we're closing this out. If you have any other suggestions for me or Greg, throw those in the comments. We'd love to hear them. And until next time, folks, keep creating. Now I got to find the outro.